Ethan trudged through the snow, the icy wind biting his face and turning his breath into little clouds of mist. He had been traveling for days across the frozen plains of this remote colony, and all he wanted was one thing: a warm place to sleep. His boots were soaked and his coat offered little protection against the wind that seemed to whistle through the empty streets of the small settlement. Lights flickered faintly in the distance, but there was no sound of people, no laughter, no life. Only the crunch of his footsteps and the occasional creak of the frozen metal structures around him. He had expected a small town, maybe a few humans living here, but this place felt almost deserted. The buildings were strange, with smooth curves and glimmering surfaces reflecting the pale light of the twin moons above. It looked more like an art installation than a functioning town. He paused, brushing the snow from his face, and tried to locate the source of the faint glow he had seen earlier. As he moved closer, a melodic laugh reached his ears. It was soft, musical, and unlike anything he had heard before. Ethan froze, heart pounding. From behind one of the curving buildings, two figures emerged. They were humanoid, but taller than humans, with skin that shimmered faintly like polished metal. Their hair floated lightly, almost as if it had weightless strands, and their eyes glowed with a gentle light. They moved with a grace Ethan had never seen, their motions fluid and almost dreamlike. "Who are you?" he asked cautiously, his voice low. The wind carried it away almost immediately. The taller one tilted her head, studying him with curiosity. "You are human," she said softly, her voice melodic, carrying a tone of amusement. "Why are you here, alone, in the cold?" Ethan shrugged. "I'm just looking for a place to sleep, that's all." The shorter sister smiled, a warm expression that softened her sharp features. "You are far from home," she said. "Come with us. You should not wander the night alone. It is dangerous." Ethan hesitated, uncertainty gnawing at him. He had learned over the years that trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. Yet, exhaustion tugged at him like a relentless hand. The thought of warmth, of shelter outweighed caution. He nodded slowly. "Okay. Lead the way." They guided him through winding paths between buildings, their steps silent on the frozen ground. The town, he realized, was alive in ways he hadn't expected. Soft lights glowed beneath surfaces and strange floating plants hung in the air, swaying as if moved by invisible currents. Occasionally, he caught glimpses of other figures in the distance, watching quietly, but never approaching. Finally, they arrived at a structure that seemed to hum with energy. The sisters gestured for him to enter. Inside, the warmth was immediate, and the cold of the night seemed to vanish like a bad memory. The room was large, filled with strange objects Ethan could not identify. Some emitted soft lights, others floated in the air, and a few seemed to respond to his presence, adjusting their position as he moved. "You will stay here tonight," the taller sister said. "You must rest. Tomorrow, we will show you more of our world." Ethan sank onto a cushioned platform that seemed to mold itself to his shape. He was too tired to question anything, too tired to argue. He closed his eyes, letting the comfort of the room seep into his aching body. The night passed with strange, dreamlike sensations. Ethan was aware of soft movements around him, gentle whispers that spoke in a language he could not understand, and glimmers of light that danced across the walls. At times he felt as if someone or something was observing him closely, but when he opened his eyes, no one was there. Only the faint shimmer of the sisters' presence lingered, calm and watchful. Morning arrived with a soft glow, filtering through translucent walls. Ethan woke to find the sisters already awake, moving gracefully around the room. They were preparing a meal, though it was unlike anything he had ever seen. Glowing fruits, liquids that floated above bowls, and textures that shifted like liquid metal. "You must eat," said the shorter sister, holding out a small glowing sphere. "It will give you energy for the day." Ethan took it cautiously, watching as the glow dimmed slightly in his hands. He bit into it, surprised as the flavor was familiar, yet unlike any food he had tasted. Sweet, tangy and warm. It filled him with a sensation that seemed to reach beyond mere hunger. After eating, the sisters gestured for him to follow. They led him outside, and the town seemed to transform in the light of day. The buildings sparkled, like crystal. The plants glowed more vividly, and creatures of varying shapes and colors moved gracefully among the streets. Ethan realized that this town, so quiet and mysterious at night, was vibrant and alive in ways he could not have imagined. The sisters began to guide him through lessons in their technology and culture. They showed him how to manipulate energy, fields that floated above the ground, how light and sound could be shaped into tools, and how their plants could communicate subtle messages. Ethan struggled at first, feeling clumsy and out of place, but the sisters were patient, laughing softly when he made mistakes, and encouraging him when he succeeded. Hours passed, and Ethan found himself growing fascinated. Their world was beautiful, strange, and incredibly complex. The sisters were intelligent, playful, and curious, constantly testing his reactions, not in a cruel way, but in a way that seemed to measure his adaptability. They asked questions about Earth, about humans, and about his experiences traveling across colonies. Ethan answered honestly, sharing stories of survival, loneliness, and unexpected moments of kindness he had encountered along the way. By midday, the sisters took him to a high platform overlooking the entire town. From there, Ethan could see the frozen plains stretching into the horizon, dotted with other settlements, distant lights flickering like stars on the ground. He felt a strange sense of smallness, yet also importance, as if being here was part of something much bigger than himself. "You are different from us," said the taller sister softly, her gaze steady on him. "Humans, you are fragile, yet strong in ways we cannot predict." Ethan smiled wryly. "Fragile? That's one way to put it. But we survive. Somehow." The sisters exchanged a glance, one that Ethan could not read, and then turned back to him. "We are curious," said the shorter one. "You are the only human we have met. You will be with us for now. There are things you must see, things you must learn. Our world, it is different, and we think you are special." Ethan swallowed, unsure whether to feel honored or overwhelmed. I didn't ask for any of this. I just wanted a place to sleep." The sisters laughed softly, a sound like wind chimes. "And yet, here you are," said the taller sister. "Perhaps sleeping is only the beginning." The rest of the day passed in a blur of wonder and discovery. Ethan helped the sisters with small tasks, learning how their energy systems worked, how to move objects with subtle shifts in balance and focus, and how to communicate with their floating creatures. Every moment felt like a test, but not one designed to harm him. Instead, it was as if the sisters were discovering him as much as he was discovering their world. As evening fell, Ethan found himself exhausted again, but not just from physical exertion. His mind was buzzing with questions, thoughts, and the strange exhilaration of being somewhere entirely alien yet strangely inviting. He realized that the sisters' world was not only beautiful, but dangerous in ways he could not yet comprehend. And somehow being the only human in this place made him feel both vulnerable and important. Before he went to sleep that night, Ethan stood by the window, watching the twin moons rise over the frozen landscape. The wind had died down and the quiet of the settlement was comforting rather than eerie. The sisters had already gone to rest, their soft glow dimming in the low light. He thought about his life before this, the endless wandering, the loneliness, and the constant struggle to survive. Now he understood that things had changed. This was no longer just a stopover for him. He was at the center of something bigger, something that involved alien intelligence, unfamiliar customs, and challenges that he could not yet imagine. And the sisters, the alien girls who had brought him here, who had insisted on his presence, who had laughed and studied him with such curiosity, they were part of that change. Ethan lay down, the warm platform cradling him like a gentle hand. He closed his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, he felt safe. Not just because he had shelter, but because he was part of a world that seemed vast, strange, and full of possibilities. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, or how much of himself he would have to reveal to survive it. But he knew one thing. Sleeping had been just the beginning, and his journey into the sisters' world was only starting. Outside, the wind whispered through the town, carrying soft echoes of laughter, light, and the promise of adventure, and somewhere deep within Ethan, a spark of excitement ignited. He was the only human in this alien town, and the sisters had far bigger plans than he could imagine. Ethan woke to the soft hum of the settlement, sunlight filtering through translucent walls and making the floating plants shimmer like tiny stars. He stretched, feeling the warmth of the platform beneath him, and remembered the events of the previous day. The alien sisters, Lyra and Neva, were already awake, preparing for the day with their usual grace and energy. "You slept well," Lyra said, noticing him at the door. Her voice carried a mixture of amusement and curiosity. "Good. Today you will see more of our world. Are you ready?" Ethan nodded. He had expected a quiet day, but he quickly realized that life in this settlement was never quiet. Every step he took revealed something extraordinary. The sisters guided him to a place that seemed to float above the ground, a garden of plants and flowers suspended in midair. Light twisted around them, changing colors like liquid rainbows. "These plants communicate with each other," Neva explained. "They share energy, knowledge, and even memory. Watch closely." Ethan observed, fascinated, as tendrils of light connected each plant. He could almost feel the subtle pulses of information moving through the air. The sisters encouraged him to interact with the plants, teaching him how to touch them gently to receive small visions or memories of their growth and history. At first it was confusing, but he soon began to sense the rhythm, the energy, and the delicate balance of this alien ecosystem. "You are learning quickly," Lyra said, smiling. "Humans adapt faster than we expected." Ethan chuckled, feeling a mix of pride and exhaustion. "I've had to adapt to some strange places before. This is just on another level." The sisters laughed softly, and then their expressions grew serious. "There is more you must understand," Neva said. "Our settlement relies on energy fields that protect us from the storms outside. They are delicate and sometimes dangerous if not managed carefully." They led him to a central platform surrounded by glowing nodes and floating rings of energy. Ethan watched in awe as the sisters demonstrated how to manipulate the fields. Light bent and twisted according to their gestures, forming protective barriers, bridges, and even simple constructs. "Try it," Lyra said, handing him a small floating ring. Ethan hesitated, remembering the warnings, but carefully lifted it. To his surprise, the ring responded instantly, hovering steadily and glowing brighter under his focus. He experimented, moving it through the air, creating gentle arcs of light that made the sisters clap softly in approval. "You have a human skill," Neva said. "Your mind is not like ours. You see connections differently. That is why you can succeed here." Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of pride he hadn't felt in years. He had spent most of his life surviving alone, relying on instinct and intuition. Here, those very human traits allowed him to grasp things the sisters had learned through years of study. The day progressed with more lessons. The sisters showed him how to care for the floating creatures that lived in the town, how to read subtle changes in the environment, and how to sense shifts in energy that could indicate danger. Ethan noticed that the town itself seemed alive, responding to actions, decisions, and even emotions. The sisters explained that their civilization had evolved to harmonize with energy, not just use it, and that humans like him could contribute in ways no alien could predict. As evening approached, the sisters took Ethan to a platform overlooking the frozen plains. The twin moons hung low in the sky, casting a silver glow over the icy landscape. Ethan felt a strange mix of calm and tension. This world was beautiful, but it was also fragile. "You have done well," Lyra said softly, "but now you must understand responsibility. There are risks outside these walls." Before he could ask, the ground trembled slightly. Energy fields flickered and a faint alarm sounded, a low, resonant hum that vibrated through the air. The sisters' expressions became serious. "An energy storm is approaching," Neva explained. "It is rare but powerful. It can destabilize our settlement and destroy everything if not contained." Ethan felt his heart quicken. Danger was real, and for the first time he realized that his presence here was more than curiosity or learning. He had to act, to help protect a world that was not his own, but one that had welcomed him. The sisters guided him to the central nodes, where energy fields intersected. They demonstrated how to reinforce barriers and stabilize the field, but the system was delicate. Ethan could see that a small mistake could create a chain reaction, potentially catastrophic. He drew on everything he had learned that day, every instinct and human intuition that had kept him alive on countless colonies. "Focus," Lyra urged. "Trust yourself." Ethan took a deep breath and began. He adjusted his movements using both the sisters' techniques and his own reasoning. Slowly, the energy fields began to stabilize, glowing brighter and forming stronger patterns. Sparks danced around him, but he did not falter. The sisters assisted where necessary, their guidance precise but minimal. Finally, the tremors ceased. The fields hummed steadily, stronger than before. Ethan stepped back, breathing heavily, and looked at the sisters. They were smiling, but their eyes held awe and respect. "You did it," Lyra said. "You saved us. We could not have managed without you." Ethan shook his head in disbelief. I just did what seemed right," Neva laughed softly. "What seemed right? Saved our town. That is no small thing, human. You are not only a visitor here, you are important." For the first time, Ethan felt a sense of belonging. He had always been alone, moving from one settlement to another, surviving but never truly living. Here in this alien world, his presence had meaning, and his actions had consequences that mattered. The sisters guided him back to their home, and for the first time, Ethan noticed the subtle changes in their behavior. They were playful, yes, but their curiosity was now mingled with admiration. They asked questions, laughed softly at his jokes, and watched him with an intensity that made him aware of his uniqueness here. Over the next few days, Ethan became more integrated into the town's life. He helped stabilize energy fields, repaired small devices using his practical human knowledge, and even discovered ways to improve efficiency in the floating gardens. The sisters in the town began to treat him not just as a guest but as a member of their society. One evening, Lyra led him to a quiet balcony overlooking the settlement. "Ethan," she said softly, "you are different. Humans, you have something we do not. Strength, intuition, courage. Even alone, you can make choices that change the outcome of events. That is why we are fascinated by you." Ethan looked out over the glowing town, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "I never asked for any of this," he said. "I just wanted a place to sleep." Lyra smiled, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Sometimes what we want is small, but what we need is much greater. You have given us hope. You have shown us that humans, though few and fragile, can make a difference." The following days passed with a rhythm of learning, exploration, and subtle tests. Ethan realized that the sisters' fascination was not just curiosity. It was respect and trust growing with each day. They included him in decisions, asked his opinions on solutions, and even relied on his intuition for predicting subtle shifts in the environment. Then one day, the sisters brought him to the edge of the settlement, where the frozen plains stretched endlessly. They pointed to distant lights on the horizon. "Other settlements," Neva explained. "They are isolated just as we are, but you could help us connect. Humans are different. You can build bridges between worlds." Ethan understood then that his presence here was no longer accidental. His arrival had set something in motion, a blending of cultures, a sharing of knowledge, and the beginning of something greater than mere survival. The sisters' bigger plans were clear now. They wanted him not just to sleep, not just to exist, but to be a part of their world in a way no human had ever been. He smiled faintly. The idea was overwhelming, but also exhilarating. He had come seeking nothing but warmth and shelter, yet he had found a purpose. He realized that humans, even alone and seemingly weak, had the ability to change worlds. That night, as he lay on the platform once again, Ethan thought about the journey that had brought him here. The long nights alone in distant colonies, the constant struggle to survive, and now, this extraordinary life among beings that were both alien and astonishingly beautiful. Lyra and Neva floated quietly nearby, their soft presence comforting. Ethan knew that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a traveler looking for a place to rest. He was a bridge between humans and this alien world, a part of something larger, and a figure who had earned respect through courage, intelligence, and heart. Outside, the twin moons shone over the frozen plains, casting silver light on the settlement. The wind was calm, carrying with it whispers of future adventures, challenges, and discoveries. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the warmth of the platform, the safety of the town, and the presence of the sisters. He knew that tomorrow and every day after would bring new trials, but he was ready. In a world so vast, strange, and beautiful, Ethan had found his place. He was the only human in this settlement, yet he was needed, respected, and valued. And for the first time in years, he realized that being human, fragile, adaptable, clever, was enough to make a difference. The sisters' bigger plans had become his life, and he embraced them, ready to see just how far he